Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. It's been a while again. I've not been lazy, just had some shit going on. So this is going to be a bit like like G-Man does his review of the week. This is kind of like probably going to be like review of the fortnight since I last done a video. So let's have a chat about some stuff that's happened. We had the Ring Magazine award ceremony, didn't we? I don't know about what kind of business model Turkey LSA's got for the Ring Magazine thing, because who out there amongst you lot buys magazines anymore, actual physical magazines? I mean, myself and Joe Stunner have talked about this a lot, and I know Joe's got like the scene at the end of Raiders when they pushed the Ark of the Covenant in the wooden box into that warehouse, which is just the warehouse goes on forever. That's like what Joe Stunner's collection of like boxing magazines is like. And I had the same. I used to always buy Boxing Monthly, Boxing News and Ring Magazine back in the day, but haven't bought an actual physical magazine for a long, long time. So I don't know what the intended sort of business model is for that, whether it's going to be profitable or not. But nevertheless, we got the award ceremony, which was good, and it was like the Oscars for boxing. Fairly entertaining. It was 3 hours long, the version I watched, and I did nod off through part of it, but nonetheless, it's another addition to the boxing world, isn't it? And I made a video a long while ago about Turki Al-Sheikh and about his monopolisation of kind of boxing currently, which is kind of like, he seems with every step he sort of makes, he monopolises it a little bit more. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we'll find out in the future. I mean, at the moment, from a fan point of view, we're getting these amazing cards and we're getting events like this and we're getting stuff. So, at this point, who's to argue? But yeah, there is the issue of Turki Al-Sheikh sort of monopolising the sport, and whether that's a good thing, we're yet to see, I suppose. But yeah, the award show was good. It was good to see Anthony Joshua sort of engage with Daniel Dubois, didn't he? And sort of said, God bless you and all that sort of stuff. So that was a nice thing to see, I suppose. And everyone was there, weren't they? Other than Tyson Fury, I suppose, was the most noticeable omittance from that. So that takes us on to yesterday's announcement that Tyson Fury is retired again. Take that with a pinch of salt, whatever. Now, when he said this, the Dick Turpin reference, at least Dick Turpin wore a mask. Now, Joe mentioned this yesterday, and Joe said his first thought was, and this was my first thought, and I'll tell you why it was my first thought. My first thought was the retirement announcement came on the back of he had probably received a really lowball offer in terms of the Anthony Joshua fight. That was my first thought as to what the retirement thing was and to what the Dick Turpin reference was. It was that like it'd been so lowballed in an offer for an Anthony Joshua fight, he's fuck it, I'm going to retire. And I thought that because, and then sort of, a lot of people elaborated on, no, it was down to the fact that he was robbed twice against Alexander Usyk. Now, that really didn't cross my mind. And it didn't cross my mind because he was so obviously not robbed. He so clearly lost both of those fights that didn't even enter my head that that's what he was referencing, the fact that he was robbed against Usyk, because you just weren't. You just lost clearly both times. So yeah, my thought on that retirement speech in a Dick Turpin reference was he was referencing kind of a lowball offer in terms of an Anthony Joshua fight. So it didn't even enter my head that he was referencing that, because you fucking lost clearly twice. Is he retired? Will he come back? He said it before. I must admit, for me personally, watching the second Usyk fight, yeah, he took rounds in that fight and he had successes in that fight. But when he wasn't having success, to me, there'd been some serious aging going on for Tyson Fury. The weight didn't help, and who's to say that with the age and the advancement of age, he isn't finding the weight even more difficult to lose? And was that, he intended to come in heavier, but did he intend to come in that heavy? And was it just a process of the fact that he's getting older and the weight is getting even harder to move? But I thought at times Fury looked really bad. At the times when he wasn't having success, his output and his engine, his cardio looked really bad. He looked slow. And again, at the end of the fight, I remarked about this before, that to me, he just, taking the superficial marks out of the way, to me, looked like an old man all of a sudden. to me. So, yeah, will he fight again? I don't know. Wouldn't surprise me if he did, but, going on what I just said, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't, because to me, he just looks old now. He looks like an old fighter now. And if he was to fight Anthony Joshua, I know people kind of favour Fury. I'm not so sure. I think if you look at the two physically, I think Anthony Joshua's in a far better position physically than Tyson Fury is at this point in both their careers. Mentally, I think Tyson Fury is, for me, obviously the stronger of the two when it comes to that. And if we do see Joshua fight again, what the evidence we've got to work on is the evidence we had after the first Ruiz loss, and how damaging mentally that was to Anthony Joshua. So another devastating loss that he had against Daniel Dubois. How badly is he going to be after that, coming back mentally? But in a physical, when we're talking just pure physically and anatomically, I think Anthony Joshua is still in a far better place than Tyson Fury is. Though Tyson Fury, I think, has kind of got a better chin still, but in terms of just physical wear and tear and how physically, I think Anthony Joshua's in a better position. We've also had announcement today, I think, that Conor Benn, Chris Eubank Jr. has made. Now, a lot of people will shit on that, and fair enough, can't blame them, because, it's just a fight of reputations and fathers' names, isn't it, really? But I don't care what anyone says. Look, my point of view on this is, look, do I care about it? No, I don't. Conor Benn still hasn't proven his innocence over the PED stuff. I mean, it wasn't essentially a PED what he popped for. I know it's on the banned list, but it's not really used. There are far better performance enhancing drugs than that out there. It's essentially a PCT drug. I've covered that many times before, but regardless of what you think of the fight and what you think of its value and its worth and its relevance, make no mistake, that will be huge. Chris Eubank is very good in conferences. He's a very good talker. And Conor Benn isn't bad. He talks like he's a bit of a roadman, which he clearly isn't. But it will be big. That fight will be massive. Like it or not, that fight will be huge, because certainly it will cross right over into the sort of the casual territory, won't it? People who don't follow boxing normally are going to jump on that because of the names. And look, I don't care, and I know you don't care, and I know most of you will shit on that. And I would take it for what it is. But will I watch it? Yeah, of course I will. Of course I'm going to watch it. And I think anyone who out there says they ain't going to watch it, tell them a bit of a porky, to be honest, in my eyes. Because if you're a fight fan, you'll watch it. If you're a fight fan, you're going to sit outside a pub and watch two 50-year-olds sway about and miss each other with haymakers, aren't you? Because it's a fight. We like a fight, essentially. Certainly ain't one for the purists, but regardless, I'll watch it. Don't care if it happens. So, but yeah, Joshua, where does he go? You don't really see anywhere he has to go other than Fury. Is it a double bluff by Fury, and then he's going to come back out of retirement, and because he's retired, the offer of the Fury fight, they're going to have to sort of offer him more to pull him out of retirement than if he was still active. I don't know. The thing with Tyson Fury is now, and this is just in life with most things, the more you do things, the easier they become, and now Tyson Fury's lost twice. So the first loss is really painful. The second loss is not quite as painful, but certainly with every loss you take, losing becomes easier, as with everything you do more than once. The more you do it, the easier it gets, and that goes for losing as well. So, take for that what you will. What we do have to discuss is the Daniel Dubois. I say Daniel Dubois, it's not that card, is it? It's the Beterbiev Bivol fight card, which is, again, just another. You look at it. I'm just looking at it now, and you're like, what? Part of me, though, with these cards, does think, I like this. You could split into two cards, and for me, I'd probably prefer that, because a lot of these cards for me, I just think they go on too long. Yeah, they're full of great fights, but I don't know if I want to sit and watch 5-6 hours straight of boxing. For me, like I've got a life as well. They're great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like shitting on them, but they're very, very long, aren't they? And you could easily make two cards out of these. But let's go into it anyway. Callum Smith, Joshua Buatsi. Kind of a tough one to pick. I Joshua Buatsi's underperformed for me recently in the last couple of years. And Callum Smith has at times too, whilst showing sort of really good bravery and guts and, ability to sort of take a beating, essentially, Callum Smith. But both of those, to me, kind of at times in the ring have lacked a little ambition and a little bit of devil and a little bit of will to win for me. So I don't know who I'll pick. That's a tough one. I would go. I don't know. If the best of both turn up, I don't know. We'll leave that one. We'll cover that nearer the time. We're just going to have a look at this card. Zhilei Zhang, Ajit Kabayel. Zhilei Zhang was spoke about a lot. I think he is. Yeah, he's a bogeyman, rightly so, but I do think he's slightly overrated in terms of how dangerous people hold him. Joseph Parker showed how to beat him, and I remember remarking on that I think Joseph Parker could have made that fight a lot easier for himself had he added in more movement rather than just standing in front of Zhilei Zhang, because if you stand in front of Zhilei Zhang, you are in trouble. Ajit Kabayel has done really well, hasn't he? You can't, he's becoming a bit of a danger man, and though we don't know Ajit Kabayel's ceiling quite yet, do we? So, again, tough one. Who would you make favourite out? We know Zhilei Zhang's level. We know his ceiling. Ajit Kabayel, we don't. I don't know. I mean, I might lean towards Kabayel in that. He's just slightly more live at this point. And I think Zhilei Zhang, there's a blueprint out there to beat Zhilei Zhang. Essentially, just don't let him hit you, because he's got a hell of a whack. But to me, at this point, Zhilei Zhang doesn't really offer a great deal more than that, I'm afraid, for me personally. Virgil Ortiz, Israel Madrimov. Cool, another great fight. Again, that's a tough one to pick, isn't it? I'd maybe fancy Israel Madrimov on his style and his movement in that. But again, another great card. Hamza Shiraz, again. Tough ask, isn't it? But what would you put it past Hamza Shiraz at this point? On just going on what he's done, you can't doubt him yet because he's given us nothing to doubt, really, has he? So again, another good fight. Shakur Stevenson, that could possibly be one where I sort of nod off. Shakur Stevenson, not the most exciting fighter out there, is he? But technically, you can't really fault him. But out of the whole card, that's probably the one I'm on a personal level least interested in. Daniel Dubois against Joseph Parker. Now, this really is an interesting one. I really think Daniel Dubois, man, is now the danger man in the heavyweight division, and he's kind of, we talked about this a lot. Myself, Joe Stunner, and G-Man as well. We all talked about it. So Daniel Dubois strikes you someone, and this is not meant sort of disparagingly, but Daniel Dubois strikes you someone who's kind of on the sort of autistic scale. And like I said, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. It's just kind of how he comes across. And their psyches are not sort of the same. They don't look at fear in the same way that normal. There's a lot of differences in their personality traits and the way their things are. And he's just had a massive turnaround in terms of psychology and his own psyche, that he just believes he's an absolute destroyer now. And you look at him and there doesn't seem to be one element of doubt in his mind at all. Joseph Parker, on the other hand, listen, I've talked about Joseph Parker a lot, and some people say, I'm a Joseph Parker hater, and that couldn't be further from the truth. I think Joseph Parker is a fantastic guy. He's a great, just seems like a genuinely decent guy, and he's had some brilliant wins. But for me, like the Deontay Wilder win, for me, it's a great win, all right? It's a great win on paper. You've beaten Deontay Wilder, but you had a Deontay Wilder that didn't show up and didn't throw a punch. And Joseph Parker didn't really have to do anything that special to beat him. You got a guy in front of you that's not thrown anything. And if that's the case, you don't really have to do a great deal to win. And he didn't do a great deal to win, really. He came on late and let his hands go a little bit more, Joseph Parker did, but he didn't really have to do anything essential. But I don't want to take away a win. I'm just looking at it objectively from what I saw. Great win. He beat Deontay Wilder. fantastic. But when I look at it, when you take it on what actually happened, which weren't a great deal, and Joseph Parker didn't have to do a great amount. And then the other notable win is the Zhilei Zhang fight. Now, as I said before, I got the impression, and I said this at the time, and I know Joe Stunner's repeated this, and I know a lot of people talk about this, but for me, and I said this directly after that fight, that for me, Joseph Parker looked a little fragile. Now, I know Zhilei Zhang has got, seriously heavy hands, but every time he touched Joseph Parker with anything, Joseph Parker had the look of someone who might go, and was kind of shaken by a lot of things that landed by Zhilei Zhang. And there's no wrong in that or no shame in that, but it did indicate to me that Joseph Parker's kind of showing a little bit of fragility, and kind of like, look at the Joe Joyce fight. He took a tremendous amount of punishment against Joe Joyce. That can't happen and not have a lasting effect on you. So Joseph Parker, look, I really like Joseph Parker. He's a great guy, and if you look at his record and his resume, it's up there with anybody's of this generation, isn't it? It's right up there. So I really like Joseph Parker, massive amount of respect for him, but I just feel if we look at timings, the ascendancy of Daniel Dubois, Joseph Parker can cause problems. There are things with Joseph Parker that I don't think he makes the most of some of his attributes. I don't think he uses his speed of foot and his movement to their best advantage. I don't think he uses a lot of his natural advantages, his physical advantages, as much as he could. And I said it in the Zhilei Zhang fight. I thought he could have made that fight easier with a lot more movement. You know what I mean? A lot more lateral movement, a lot more in and out. Just giving Zhilei Zhang more of a problem, more to think about, and more of a target by using his movement more than what he did, rather than standing in front of Zhilei Zhang as he did. So, look, listen, I really like Joseph Parker. Daniel Dubois just seems a different animal now. And he has belief. And belief and confidence can really make such a difference in all walks. If you've got confidence and belief in yourself, true confidence and true belief, which now it seems Dubois has, that can overcome so many other things. And if you look at the notable losses that we talk about, the Joe Joyce loss, busted eye socket, we can say he quit. Technically he did, but he had a broken eye socket. I've never had one, so I don't know what that feels like. I can only imagine what sort of confusion and what doubt that must throw into your mind when you're operating with a broken eye socket, let alone the physical disadvantage it gives you in terms of vision and this, that, and the other. So I'm kind of inclined to let that one go. Against Alexander Usyk, he kind of lost every round, more or less. The rounds were competitive visually, but he lost every round. But he did put up a good showing of himself, albeit, like I said, losing every round. They were competitive, though he lost them. But essentially, he quit. If I remember, there were a couple of stiff jabs, and Dubois kind of took a knee. I just don't see that Dubois anymore. I see a completely different Dubois now, an absolutely reborn Dubois. So I have to, for me, fancy Dubois, and the way that he goes out now with just destruction in mind from the first bell, I fancy a Dubois stoppage at this point. I'm not doing a full prediction yet, but I really do fancy Dubois. And again, please don't take this as a slight on Joseph Parker. I just look at where they are in their careers, and to me, I just have to favour Daniel Dubois. And then we move on to the main event, Beterbiev v. Bivol. Now, for me, this was for me personally, possibly the fight I enjoyed most of last year. Other than I really, really enjoyed Liam Paro's performance against Subriel Murtaza. Well, that was great. But for me, Bivol Beterbiev I was sat watching that, and I was absolutely glued, enthralled, couldn't take my eyes off it. From a purist point of view, if you know what you're watching, that was an honour to watch. Like I say, probably my fight of last year, and not because it was an up and down or on your seat war off your seat war. It was just an absolute joy, just an absolute pleasure to watch. In terms of who won, I can't remember what I thought at the time, but I remember thinking, I'll tell you what stuck out to me from that first fight. What stuck out to me was we had essentially box puncher, almost pure boxer in Bivol against walk forward puncher, walk forward aggressor. And what you got was that every now and again, Dimitri Bivol had to lay down some markers and exchange he couldn't be on his back foot the whole fight. At some point, if you are a back foot boxer, at some point you do have to make the aggressor think that you can't just keep walking forward and there's nothing going to come back. I've got to give you something that's got to make you take some care as you're walking forward. And in the exchanges where they traded with each other and punched with each other, Bivol was the better one. Bivol was the better fighter. He was faster, he was more accurate, and landed more clean shots when they exchanged. So that was very interesting. So I think there's possibly more room for Bivol to be better. He was great the first time, don't get me wrong, but I think there's more room for him to take advantage of Beterbiev. Then I'm not sure what Beterbiev can do differently than what he did the first time. But hey, he won the first time and I've no argument. So maybe Beterbiev doesn't have to do anything differently because it worked the first time, right? Fair enough, he won. And I won't argue with the result. There were a lot of rounds in that could have been either way, could have been swing rounds, depending on what you liked when it comes to the subjectivity of scoring and the way you interpreted those and scored them within the parameters of which you correctly score these rounds and these fights. So, but I'm a massive fan of both, and I picked Beterbiev the first time. I'm a massive Beterbiev fan, but I kind of edge at this point in time. I sit here now and I edge a little bit towards Bivol because I think there are things that Bivol can add to from his first performance that could take this second time around, essentially. But what a great card! What a great time for boxing we have at the moment! What a great time it is to be a boxing fan for us all. So, yeah, that was it. A little catch up. I'll see you all soon.